The boardroom where silence finally spoke. Margaret Chen sat perfectly still in the leather chair, her hands folded on the polished mahogany table. Across from her, Chairman Lu Wei spoke in rapid Mandarin to his deputy, his voice dripping with contempt. "Look at this one," he said, gesturing dismissively. "America sends us a black woman to handle billions." My father would have laughed. His deputy, Mr. Zhang, smirked. "Perhaps she's here to serve the tea." They both laughed, comfortable in their assumption that no one in the room understood them. Margaret's face remained calm, neutral, professional. But inside, something ancient stirred, a memory, a promise made 50 years ago. 3 days earlier, Margaret wasn't supposed to be in this position at all. She had spent 28 years at Patterson Steel Industries as Senior Operations Director, competent, reliable, invisible in the way that black women in corporate America often learn to be. She attended every meeting, solved every crisis, and watched younger white colleagues get promoted past her with manufactured smiles and quiet grace. Her mother used to tell her, "Baby, you just keep your head down and do good work. That's how we survive." Margaret had survived, but she had never truly thrived. Then James Patterson, the CEO, suffered a heart attack during a company golf tournament. The emergency board meeting convened within hours. "Gentlemen," said William Foster, the chairman, his voice heavy with urgency, "in 48 hours, a Chinese manufacturing consortium arrives to finalize a partnership worth $2.1 billion. We need someone to lead these negotiations." Robert Mitchell, the VP of International Affairs, straightened his designer tie. "I can handle this, Bill. I've been building relationships with their team for months." Several board members nodded. Robert looked the part. Silver-haired, confident, the kind of man who commanded rooms simply by entering them. But Foster wasn't looking at Robert. His eyes had found Margaret, sitting quietly in the back row, reviewing contract documents as she always did. "Margaret," Foster said, "you speak Mandarin, don't you?" The room went silent. Heads turned. Margaret looked up, surprised to be addressed. "Yes, sir, I do. How well?" She paused, measuring her words carefully. "Fluent, including business terminology and regional dialects." Foster nodded slowly. "Then you'll lead the negotiations, effective immediately as acting CEO." The room erupted in objections, but Foster raised his hand. "The decision is made." That evening, Margaret sat alone in Foster's office. He slid a file across the desk. "Before you accept, watch this. Tell me what you really hear." It was a video of Chairman Lu discussing contract terms in Mandarin. Margaret watched once, then again, her expression darkening. "The official translation is mostly accurate," she said carefully. "But at the 3-minute mark, he switches to Shanghai dialect. He tells his team that once we sign, they'll renegotiate everything in their favor. He calls us naive Americans who don't understand real business." Foster leaned back. "Where did you learn to catch nuances like that?" Margaret's hand moved to her briefcase, to the worn journal inside. "From my grandmother, Rose Chen. She learned Mandarin working as a housekeeper for a wealthy Chinese family here in Chicago. 50 years ago." Foster's eyebrows rose. "Go on." "The family name was Liu. They owned textile factories. My grandmother cleaned their home, raised their children, including a boy named Wei. He was 7 years old then." Foster went very still. "The same Lu Wei coming here in 2 days?" "The same man," Margaret said quietly, "though he won't remember her. To him, my grandmother was just another black servant, someone who cleaned and cooked and disappeared." She opened the journal, her grandmother's handwriting filling the pages. "But Rose did something they didn't know about. She learned their language. Every night after the family slept, an elderly scholar named Mr. Wang taught her in secret. He saw her intelligence, her hunger to learn." Margaret's voice wavered slightly. "One evening, Mr. Lu Sr. came home early. He found my grandmother reading Mandarin poetry aloud. Perfectly, beautifully. What happened? He fired her on the spot. Called her arrogant for trying to rise above her station. It was December. She walked out into the snow with nothing." Margaret touched the journal. "Mr. Wang gave her this as she left. Inside he wrote, 'Language is power. May you never be silenced.'" Foster was quiet for a long moment. "And she taught you?" "She taught my mother. My mother taught me. 3 generations learning in secret, waiting for what?" Margaret met his eyes. "For this moment. For the day when Rose Chen's granddaughter could sit across from Liu Wei's son and speak in the language they thought we didn't deserve to know. Foster stood, walked to the window overlooking Chicago. The city lights spread below like scattered stars. 25 years ago, he said slowly, Liu Wei's father approached me for a business partnership. He had one condition: I had to fire a black woman on my executive team. Said she made his associates uncomfortable. What did you do? I told him to leave my office. Foster turned back. That woman became our CFO. She retired last year with full honors. He extended his hand. Margaret, I won't tell you how to handle this negotiation, but if you want to settle an old debt while protecting this company, I won't stand in your way. Margaret took his hand. My grandmother died when I was 25, her last. Words were, when you finally get your chance to speak, baby, don't you dare whisper. 48 hours later, Margaret walked into that boardroom. Chairman Liu barely glanced at her. Why would he? To him, she was just another corporate functionary. Certainly not someone who mattered. He turned to Mr. Zhang and spoke in Mandarin, casual and cruel. At least my father knew how to keep people like her in their proper place. Margaret kept her expression neutral. She let them speak, let them reveal exactly who they were. For 15 minutes, they discussed the contract in English through interpreters. Professional, cordial, proper. Then Liu said something to Zhang in rapid Shanghai dialect. Once they sign, we'll restructure everything. These Americans are too soft to fight back. Margaret set down her pen. She looked directly at Chairman Liu and responded in flawless Shanghai dialect, the accent his father would have used. Chairman Liu, I understood every word you've said today, every insult, every plan to deceive us. Liu's face went pale. The interpreter froze. Margaret continued, her voice steady and clear. 50 years ago, your father employed a woman named Rose Chen. She cleaned your floors. She raised you when your parents were too busy. You probably don't remember her. Recognition flickered in Liu's eyes. A distant memory of warm hands, kind words. But Rose remembered you, Margaret said. She remembered how your father fired her for learning Mandarin, how he called her presumptuous for trying to better herself. She opened the journal, placed it on the table. This belonged to my grandmother. Every page is filled with the language your father said she didn't deserve to speak. The room was absolutely silent. This partnership is terminated, Margaret said, switching back to English. Patterson Steel will not do business with anyone who believes some people are meant to serve while others are meant to lead. She stood, gathered her materials. My grandmother never got to answer your father, but I can answer you. She looked at Liu one final time and said in Mandarin, the servant's granddaughter just ended your billion-dollar deal. Remember your place. Margaret walked out of that boardroom with her head high. Behind her, chaos erupted. Liu was shouting. His team was scrambling. Robert Mitchell was trying to salvage something from the wreckage, but Margaret didn't look back. 6 months later, Patterson Steel announced a new partnership with a different Chinese manufacturer, one that valued respect and integrity. The deal was slightly smaller, but far more honest. Margaret's interim title became permanent. She was named CEO with unanimous board approval. On her desk, she kept Rose's journal in a frame. Next to it, a photo of her grandmother from 1973, standing outside the Liu family mansion in a simple coat, holding that journal, looking directly at the camera with quiet dignity. People ask Margaret sometimes if she feels vindicated. She always shakes her head. It's not about revenge, she says. It's about my grandmother teaching me that our voices matter, that we don't have to accept other people's limitations. She pauses, touches the journal frame. Rose never got to speak in that moment 50 years ago, but she made sure I could. Last month, Margaret established the Rose Chen Foundation. It provides language scholarships to children from working-class families, Chinese, Spanish, French, Arabic. Hundreds of students learning that language is power, that education opens doors, that no one gets to decide who deserves to speak. On the first day of classes, Margaret welcomed the students with words her grandmother taught her. May you never be silenced when it matters most. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is remember those who came before us, those who planted seeds they never got to see bloom. Rose Chen planted a seed in bitter soil. 50 years later, it grew into something beautiful. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to our channel because next week we're sharing another story about ordinary people who did extraordinary things. And leave a comment telling us about someone in your life who taught you to use your voice, who gave you the courage to speak up, who planted seeds in your life that are still growing today. We'd love to hear your story.